of open meetings only, and in accordance with the executive order from Governor Hochul. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to move forward, and I'd like to turn it over to our president, Ms. Christine Dale.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everybody. First up tonight are the approval of our minutes from our last meeting on September 16th. So can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any comments or discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, next section is our open session for community questions and comments. So anybody in the community that would like to ask a question, give a comment, state a concern, you're welcome to come up to the podium. We ask you to state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes. We do try to stay to that time pretty strictly. So once you start approaching the 3 minutes, I will give you a warning for you to wrap up. So if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak, now is your time. Okay, doesn't look like we have anybody tonight. As always, anybody ever has a question or concern, you can always email the district, send an email in through Dr. Douglas to get to the board, and we do our best to be able to review that, and Dr. Douglas is very responsive in getting answers out. So I'll turn it over now to our report from our student representative.
Good evening, everyone. The senior class just wrapped up their fundraiser, and I'm happy to report they reached and passed their goal of $22,000. They will be celebrating with a sunrise breakfast on the 22nd. In addition, on November 1st and 3rd, seniors will be having cap and gown measurements taken in preparation for graduation at the end of the year. The football team recently honored Mike Dialozio on the October 8th football game. At this football game, Horseheads beat Johnson City. Both the girls' swim team and volleyball team remain undefeated, and Unified Sports has t-shirts for sale for $10 each. The marching band has performed every weekend except that of October 9th and has won first place in every performance. They will be performing at the Syracuse Carrier Dome on October 31st for the state championship. If you'd like to see them perform a little closer to home, come see them perform their show first up at Bandtoberfest at Corning Painted Post High School on October 23rd. The Green Room Players will be presenting their show All Together Now on November 12th and 13th. It's a musical review of some of the best of Broadway, and you won't want to miss it. Look for tickets to go on sale online and streaming around the first week of November. There will be a concert on October 26th in the auditorium for band, orchestra, and both choirs. The National Honor Society will be kicking off the year soon with the induction ceremony of its new members. And food bank volunteer shifts have begun, taking place on Tuesdays and Thursdays starting next week. Homecoming is coming up in the following week, and students are getting really excited. Leading up to the game, Spirit Week will fuel this excitement with a color, character, decade, surfers versus bikers, and Raider Day. The student with the most spirit will be honored at the pep rally next Friday. The homecoming dance will take place on October 23rd. That is all.
Thank you. Lots of exciting stuff going on, and congratulations to all of our sports teams and our field band for the great performances and accomplishments they've achieved so far this year. Turn it over to our presentations now. We have 2. We have our capital project updates from Hunt and Welliver, as well as our professional development plan from Mrs. Owen and Mr. Gill.
So I'd like to start with our capital project presentation, as the board has been working on this for a little over about 3 or 4 months at this point, to a culminating point for tonight. Mr. Chad Snowberg, our project manager and architect, is here on behalf of Hunt Architecture. And we want to turn it over to him so that he can talk about where we are at for the resolution tonight, as well as for the potential vote and seeker resolutions that are coming up. Chad, it's all yours.
Thanks, Tom. So as Tom mentioned, we really have I believe we have two resolutions. Correct me if I'm wrong, Katie. We have two resolutions tonight on the agenda, one for seeker, and then we also have one for the capital project, which is the proposition. So we'll start, and they obviously go hand in hand together. I've brought with me Chris Wood, who will come up afterwards, a civil engineer for us at Hunt, and he'll talk through the seeker process and what we've been doing for the last 30 days to help inform you on that resolution that will be coming up on your agenda later this evening to declare yourselves the lead agency. So we'll get into that a little more, but we'll start with kind of recapping where we're at with the scope of the project, as well as an update, because as you'll remember from the last presentation, we talked about reconciling some of those dollar values with Welliver's estimating team. So we've worked on that over the last month and kind of reconciling those to make sure that our original budgets were appropriately in line with what Welliver was seeing within the industry as we're kind of working through that right now. So that's where we're at. So I'll dive right into it here. This is our slide we've seen, just kind of an update of where we're at, those things that we've checked off through the past couple of months, hitting each of our milestones, bringing us all the way down to the seeker action, the second from the bottom there, which is tonight. That's that seeker action that we'll need to, that's the next step in the project. We have started working on a proposed schedule, again, as part of that estimating process with Welliver to help inform the dollars. You have to have an idea of what the schedule is going to be to build the project. So we've worked closer towards that. Right now we're looking at those years, that development, starting next year. We're working on a couple of projects that potentially could be able to start as early as at least bidding next year or getting into New York State for a building permit, and then extending through the 2026 year. So somewhere around 4 to 5 years of construction and design. But we'll begin to nail that down more as we get deeper into it. So these are a couple of new slides that I thought would be helpful to add to the presentation. I've still got the plans that I'll show you, but this is just a kind of a brief overview in written text that explains what we're kind of doing through the project at each of the buildings. And I will bring the plans back up. But just to recap, we've got the classroom additions at each of the elementary schools. I broke out Big Flats and Ridge Road here from Gardner Road only to save space on the slide, mostly. But there are some differences. At Gardner Road, we've got a gymnasium that we don't see a need for additions. But that doesn't mean there isn't a lot of renovations there, potentially taking over unused space to expand the size of that gymnasium. But no additions for the gymnasium or the cafeteria kitchen, but maybe more extensive renovations at Gardner Road. Back to Big Flats and Ridge Road, as you recall from the plans, that's where we're building that new gymnasium so that we can renovate that domino effect from the library to the cafeteria. And I'll get more into that when we get to the plans, just to recap. The HVAC upgrades, there was a lot of discussion about what type of HVAC upgrades and air conditioning and what places we're going to put it. And we did land on that at the last time we presented to you. So nothing's changed there. The estimating with Welliver all went well. So air conditioning, the spaces that we're touching, the new spaces, as well as the spaces that we're renovating, is still within all of the pricing that we have, the review that we've done. So that kind of recaps the elementary schools. Then moving to the intermediate middle school, the Sing Sing campus, a lot of roof replacements there. That's one of the last buildings that has still some pretty extensive roof to replace. We've got the gymnasium and locker room renovations that some of you may recall that we value engineered out of the current project, so we're bringing those back. Again, the HVAC upgrades and replacements in the building, as well as finishing the bus loop and the parking renovations on the larger side of that building, the larger parking lot, the one that isn't getting done right now. And then the high school, the gymnasium and locker room renovations in addition, as well as the east parking lot, and then continuing roof replacements. There are some classroom renovations that happen as part of that gymnasium, as you see on the floor plan, but not nearly as extensive as we've gone through in the current project. And then lastly, the stadium, continuing with the outbuildings out there. So looking at the locker room additions, both for a home team and a visitor team, and adding those buildings to the stadium to continue that process. Yes, sir. And you'll definitely, thank you, Tom, and you'll see that when I bring the plan up too, that we've really worked hard to make sure that, yes, absolutely, we're accommodating music and, yep, definitely. There's lots of spaces that you'll be able to see when I bring the plan up that's in that's more than locker room. So yes, thank you.
You could just mention the reason why they weren't included in the first project was specifically to avoid local cost share.
Correct.
And trying to shift that to.
Yep.
I
Yep, will do. So what Tom was just talking about is a great point. So if you recall, through this whole course of doing this stadium, the way the aid works at New York State, not to get too deep, is you've really got kind of three pools of aid. You've got new building construction aid, you've got renovation building construction aid, and you have incidental aid. And unfortunately, incidental aid also includes site work and outbuildings. So an incidental only gets aided up to a certain percentage, 25%. So not to get too deep, but the site work has to also fall in the same pool of money as you're paying your professionals, your testing, your sampling, your monitoring for asbestos through the course, air monitoring through the project, construction testing. There's the categories go on and on that have to fall in that 25%. And unfortunately, any site work you do also falls in that. So it becomes a real challenge to identify how much can get done to maximize the aid, to limit the impact to the local share. And that's what we did in referendum 1 that Tom's referring to. We really maximized everything we could do on that stadium building without having an impact to the local share. And now that's why in this second project, once again, same concept, maximize what we can do, and now we have the opportunity to go and build these extra storage spaces and these other locker rooms that, from a program stance, obviously it would have been best to be able to build all those at one time to be able to fulfill the program needs, but from an aid perspective and to limit that tax impact to the local share, that's the reason we went with the strategy that we've gone with. Of course. That's correct. And that's a tricky question because reimbursement actually has an inflation factor that, not to get too technical, but yes, it's the same. SED recalculates the aid rate based on what the current market value is, so it fluctuates somewhat. But yes, the whole strategy here. It could. Yeah. So yes, absolutely. So to speak, the plan we laid out has come to fruition. We have been successful. We got it aided in the first project. We're currently working for preliminary submission with New York State as we speak right now to validate that yes, everything points in the direction that it's going to work the way we expected it to. Does that clarify it, Tom? Good. So quickly, this slide shouldn't look any different for anyone. In fact, what we did find, without getting into every single one of these numbers, and we certainly can, is that when we did our evaluation with Welliver, there were some places where we were high and Welliver was lower than we were for the budget number, and there were some places where Welliver was higher than we had originally thought we would be. But honestly, through the course of the couple of weeks that Welliver had it, and then we had a couple of really great meetings, sit-downs directly with the Welliver and the Hunt team, we felt like all of those pools balanced themselves out, and what we actually realized is it even gave us an opportunity, as you'll see in the slides for the floor plans, to address an issue that maybe we kind of overlooked, which was the stages at the elementary schools. So we actually had an opportunity, because we had the stages in the cafeteria, and I'll make this story short, but we had the stages in the cafeteria talking to New York State Education Department department, they actually recommended to maximize our aid that we would receive for those spaces. It was better to have the stage associated to the gymnasium, which is not how we had it laid out. So we kind of hit the drawing board and we said, let's maximize this aid, because functionally, as long as it's designed well, a stage is going to function well at either one of those spaces. And frankly, we thought the gymnasium's actually even going to be bigger than the cafeteria. So from a performance standpoint, it actually made sense for not only financially to put the stage associated with the cafeteria or the gymnasium, it kind of made sense even from a program standpoint. So with the realization of some of the monies where we had heavy and Welliver had us light, we were actually able to resolve that design problem and validate that we remained at the same $122,254,993. So that bottom dollar value has not changed from the last presentation that we came here with you. The individual pools have moved around a little bit. We validated, because if you recall, there was some concerns about if you have a certain amount of addition work versus renovation work, and you have more addition versus renovation, then it kicks you into a 20-year borrowing cycle, which then screws up your aid return. So we really worked hard to make sure that even with these changes that we identified, in fact, in some of the places it got better than we were previously. So we're confident that all of those checks have happened, and that from an aid perspective, this is the best way to package the scope that we have identified here. Financially, from an aid reimbursement standpoint, this is the best way to package the project, and we feel really confident in that. I think last slide here before I go to the plans is the schedule, and nothing's changed here. Again, we've hit all of the milestones along the way. You'll notice we're here at the Board of BOE SEQR, that's the Seeker Determination Referendum Resolution, that's tonight. So assuming that the project looks as we had expected it to, that the scope is appropriate as we thought it was supposed to be, then we're here to tell you that that determination process has occurred. We've contacted the agencies, and I don't want to steal all of Chris's thunder. So he'll explain all of that and address any questions you have in regards to the seeker process. If there's no more questions here, I'll jump to the floor plans and kind of go through those quickly. Let's see. So existing, we've got big flats, and I'm really going to focus on, because nothing has really changed here. I will tell you there's been a lot of activity between Mr. Gill, myself, and Kelly Squires, the special education director in the district, over the last few days to really identify all of the special education needs throughout the district and how they're distributed throughout the plan. So if somebody sat and compared these floor plans to the floor plans that was shown last time, you would find some room tag changes, but it's really just room tag changes. As far as the blue, the renovations, the number of classrooms being added, the number of classrooms being renovated, that's all remained the same. We've been able to resolve all of the current special education provisions, as well as all of the anticipated new provisions in the footprint that we had always shown you all along. So that was the good news there. So we feel really confident we've resolved that and identified all those needs. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So did that make the gym larger?
It did.
Okay.
It did. And I'm trying to find the zoom button on this. Is it just that? Oh, yeah, there we go. So, and we'll focus here on this. So we kept the gyms. You'll notice the gym now bumps out into the space out. This is Big Flats. So this bumps out a little towards the church and the cemetery there. So, you know, again, sometimes these things that force us to happen actually kind of resolve design issues as well in our mind. So we kind of like, because we have always seen, I mean, obviously the gym's going to have a taller roof, than the classrooms next to it. So that's a really strange detail, actually, to have two different roofs at the same height within the same plane on the elevation. So by bumping this out, it actually gave us an opportunity to separate those two roof elevations, which is nice. This is where I'm saying this extra square footage that we've identified here is being paid for through that reconciliation process that we did with Welliver. We feel really confident looking at all of the square footages, and we really have dug deeper than maybe I've ever even done for a referendum, to be honest with you. So we feel really confident that yes, there's about 1,600 square feet of addition at Ridge Road and at Big Flats to accommodate this stage. So it's not a huge amount of additional square footage, you know, about 1,600 square feet. The stages end up being, in these plans right now, end up being about 1,900 square feet. 2,000 square feet is a magical number in the code for stages. All kinds of new, or not new regulation, but additional requirements are required when you go over 2,000 square feet. I will tell you, if you've probably haven't had the opportunity because it's still in the middle of construction, but when we get the opportunity to see the stage at the intermediate middle school that's completing right now, these stages aren't much smaller than that. So it's very comparable, so you'll be able to get a nice feel for what this stage has the potential to be as soon as we open that here in a couple of months. Go ahead, Warren.
To your point here,
Yes.
just kind of outlining the gym where the stage.
I got you, yep. So right now what we see is, so corridor is here. This is a little lobby, you know, it's not a big lobby, but if this corridor is about 10 feet wide, this is about 20 feet. So you've got a nice little, you know, I'm imagining Big Flats Youth Basketball League that runs out here that's absolutely packed on Saturdays. You know, it gives an opportunity for a little bit of gathering space outside the gym here. There'd be two entrances into this gym. What we really struggled with was we wanted the stage on the inside of the school. And the reason we see that is you've got a music room here, you've got a music room here, we've almost created a music kind of corridor here where you could cue kids in these music rooms and they could enter the stage from the back side, right from the corridor, rather than from the gymnasium. So we wanted to push this thing out, but as a result, we still wanted to have an access. So this line right here is center court, but it's also your dividing curtain. So what we wanted to do was still have an opportunity to be able to have two separate sides of a gym that you could put a folding partition in here and have two separate entrances into those two sides. So it kind of created this little weird thing that I think we can still work on and resolve as we dig deeper into the design. But we knew it was important to have two separate entrances in, so you could use that for two PE classes. You know, you want to be able to have two in there. We've got bleachers shown, about 3 rows of bleachers on the one side of the gymnasium. So if you'll notice, the gym, this is 50 by 72, I believe. Maybe not quite 72. I know it's not it's a full width basketball court, but it's slightly short. I think a high school is 94 or something like that, I believe. 94. 80, right. So this is about 72.
Modified can be, I think it's 70 to 80.
Yeah. So this, we think that you can certainly use this at a rec level, no problem. You know, this is a very comfortable gym, basketball court for a rec level, certainly and even all the way to a modified level. I believe it's 50 by 72. The basketball court, 50 by 72. Yeah. So, and then we were able to get bleachers on one side within that square footage, and then over tucked in the corner, but very necessary, is a ramp. We have to accommodate a ramp here to be able to get up onto that stage. So, so that's how we've got storage here. So we've got some gymnasium storage. We've also, I think, we've kept the 2 music rooms, and then I think we were able to get some music storage down here as well. So this is a space that we were able to keep the IDF for Bill to see right there. We were able to keep the IDF here. We know that was important to not have to dig into that because we just put all that technology in there as part of the technology project. So does that help, Warren? Is that good?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Awesome. All right, so that's Big Flats. Gardner Road, like I said, at Gardner Road, we don't have an addition, but we have done a couple things here because we've identified what we believe to be some needs still as far as the cafeteria is concerned. And specifically, I'll dive right in. So right now, the cafetorium is here. They've got a decent-sized stage for that. And the kitchen sits only in this space. So it's pretty linear. It doesn't have a whole lot of flexibility for space. So we saw the need potentially to have to take, so we've added some renovation here that was not originally in the plans. But again, because of those realized dollars through the Welliver review, we think that if we take those and renovate, this right now is that kind of indoor courtyard area that's at Gardner Road. It's like a indoor atrium rock area. I don't know what it is exactly, and then this is the current faculty lunchroom. So we're looking at how we can maximize that square footage, maybe reprogram the faculty dining to another location in the building, but we do recognize that there's a real need to address space at Gardner Road, and it's just not a straight renovation. I think that's really important to understand, that I think there's more here to do, and we've got it accounted for in the scope document as well as the dollars. Gymnasium hasn't really changed. We are, and I mentioned this kind of earlier, we are renovating all of this old locker room space that's adjacent to the gymnasium. I think right now it's used as a lot of storage, so we might have an opportunity to really reprogram that and utilize that space more efficiently and for better program, so which might help with some needs over there for the gymnasium, but a full renovation there. And then the classroom addition really hasn't changed at all out back. Still the same classroom addition. We reworked the playground a little bit to coordinate with some of the playground work we have going on right now in the current project that we're trying to plan for. And then we worked with the basketball court, as well as, do you remember the fire truck lane that we had out there was kind of weird. So we were able to rework that and make that a little more fluid.
Yeah, just keep in mind that you can put some other connections from A to B on as we have to do the final renovation.
Absolutely. Yep, definitely. Yeah, all we'd have to do is, at that point, when we decide to come and make that further connection, then we and at that point, most likely, this playground would need to be reworked because of age anyways. We just have to change this drive lane to straighten it out and rework this playground a little bit. But, yep, definitely doable. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Warren.
So could you go back to your cafeteria area? So my question is, I'm assuming more students are going to be going to Gardner Road.
Right.
And it appears to me the size of the cafeteria isn't changing.
That's correct.
So with the increase in number of students, will the current cafeteria size be able to accommodate more students going into that building?
Yes, we did evaluate that. The biggest reason we feel so confident that I have not done an actual layout, but I've basically taken the square footage and done what normally you account for 15 square feet per person if they're in a seated position, approximately. Just kind of helps with layout. Without knowing exactly how we're going to schedule the lunches, with elementary school, they kind of have a very interesting rotation where they bring in classes, and it seems like sometimes as long as a serving line can facilitate it, and I think that's honestly the bigger problem here at Gardner Road is the layout of the serving lines and the number of serving lines. It's not the space in the actual cafeteria that's limiting this, and that's why I think it's really important that we look at this additional square footage to try and create 2 serving lines. Essentially we could have kids come in with a serving line this direction, and maybe there's another one that's able to go this direction. And then when they're able to move those students through the line more quickly, it gives them, one, more time to eat at the table, and it gives them more flexibility for how they're going to lay that room out and how they're going to rotate the students in. And then on top of that, we did a direct comparison of this square footage compared to what we're renting. So this actually was a larger cafeteria than the existing one for Big Flats and Ridge Road by almost about 1,000 square feet. So when we are increasing the cafeteria at Big Flats and Ridge Road, and I think you'll see that when I get to the next slide, we're actually bringing it to be more comparable to this one. So I think here the issue is more serving line than it is cafeteria space.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Let's go. One more. There we go. So Ridge Road. Let's go check that, Warren, before I... So you'll notice, anybody remember what the other one was? 38? 38. Yeah, so right now we're landing, and I think Big Flats is about the same thing, about 4,000 to 4,200. So, you know, I really think that it's more about the serving line than it is the actual space in that Gardner Road cafeteria. So between the evaluation of this, plus taking that 15 square foot per person within the space, you know, we've got to get to the finer detail of, you know, how many classes are going to rotate through there and what the lunch periods are going to be. But we feel pretty confident we'll be able to make it work, yes. So here, again, you'll notice we wanted to bring that stage to the back side. So here it's not as connected to the music department. That may be something we could look at. In the Big Flats worked out because of where the addition landed. And certainly when we come back here and we do renovations as part of the other classrooms, we might look at where that music room lands. But we did feel it was still important to still have that stage at the back side rather than hanging out here. Mostly because if you want to have access to the back side of the stage, which we were able to accomplish here, it gives the performers still that opportunity to come from the back of the stage onto the stage. If you put the stage out at this end, the performers will always have to walk through the audience, or they'll have to be there and have a queuing space at the back of the stage, which is just square footage we don't necessarily have here. So that's why we thought it was really nice to put this stage where we've located it. And I think, you know, until we get into the finer detail, I think we've resolved it for the most part and made the layout work. Same gymnasium, so the same 50 by 72, same 3 or 4 rows of bleachers on the one side. So from that standpoint, the stage and the gymnasium are identical from Big Flats to Ridge Road, and now very comparable to what's at Gardner Road. So again, kitchen, larger space here with the cafeteria, the renovation of the old gymnasium into the cafeteria. And then the library renovation with the classroom additions. So like I said, nothing has changed there. There were some minor changes to the classroom tags, and that's all to maximize those aid units that are generated. But other than that, everything has remained the same. High school, and nothing has changed here. Here was really more of a validation with Welliver of what we were thinking and what we want to lay out. So I think there's still, you know, there's plenty of design that needs to happen here, but I feel confident we have evaluated the educational needs with Tony again. The classroom counts, we've validated that we've got the right number of, I think here the biggest impact is actually foreign language is probably one of the biggest impacts in this particular project. Foreign language and a little bit of art and health, I believe, are the classrooms that are affected at the high school. Like I said, this project is not nearly like the one we're trying to complete here, where we're affecting, you know, 60 or 70 classrooms. This project here at the high school for this next referendum is really focused around the completion of the renovations of the classrooms we didn't renovate in the current project and the gymnasium renovation. Yeah, Warren?
So I just noticed in one of your very early slides with the numbers for, and then it says early SCD improvement.
Yep.
So this plan would be approved 1 year later than the elementary.
Correct.
Is that because of the age cycle when we're eligible to restart any of that?
That's exactly right. Yep. So we received the way, very briefly, the way aid works is your aid cycle resets when your building permit is issued. The building permit that we're currently working on for the high school was issued in February of 2018. So it's 5 years is that magic number. So 5 years from that February of 2018, meaning February of 2023 is when we can get our next building permit. So our plan right now is to be designing the high school through 2022, make our submission, and then, do I have that right, Brian? Or actually, am I a year off?
You're a year off.
I'm even a year off. I'm sorry. It's actually 2019 to 2024. Yeah.
Just on the high school.
And it's only the high school. The other ones are the 23. Let's just go back to that slide, Warren. So those are those dates you were talking about. Oh, come on. Yeah, of course. So our elementary schools, Big Flats, Gardner Road, Ridge Road, those 3 elementary schools, those are actually in design next year. So those are the 3 that we intend to, in some capacity, be in design next year because all 3 of those are eligible to get the building permit in March of 2023. The high school is 2024. The middle school is eligible immediately. That's one that, again, we've got to talk about this as a whole team, but the intermediate schools, the Sing Sing campus could actually, there's no real restrictions. As you'll notice, we can get a building permit in March of 2022. So the reality is we could get rolling on that one and we could actually be in construction with that one in the summer of 22. And the other one that's eligible for that we still have to talk about is those locker rooms out at the stadium. Because that one's a little bit unique because that's not an aid generating building, but it's within, I know that's scary to say that, it's not an aid generating building, but it's calculated within the whole project, and that's where we get our calculation. Not everything is aidable. Some things are aidable more than what you get paid. So all of this balances itself out. But the reason that's important is because it is not an aid-producing building, we can put that on any schedule we want to within the overall schedule of the project. So we have to have a discussion with the whole team, with fiscal and with Tom and Katie and Tony and Welliver and talk about the building schedule and when's the right time to bid it and all that's got to happen. But those are our building permits that are driving us. Yep. Yeah, let's see. Yeah. It's similar. Yep. Yep.
What is the approximate seat for the size of the spectators? A basketball game or an inside graduation?
Do you know that answer for Corning, Tom? I don't know that answer. I'm gonna have to talk to. I'll have to get back to you with that number. Yeah. We have that number.
That's also the
Of course. Yep. And I think that it's safe to say there's a lot of development that's got to happen here. You know, there's a lot. This is modeled after Corning, but I think it's more important to note that the square footage is what's important there. That we've got the right footprint to meet the program, and clearly we've got to have meetings with the athletic department, with the physical education department, with all of the participants that are going to be in this building, and that's going to develop this, right? It's going to morph and it's going to become horse heads and it's going to become acclimated to this building, this site, these facilitators, right? I mean, so square footage wise, we knew that we wanted something that modeled Corning because of the opportunities it gives for physical education and for indoor practice and indoor winter sports. That square footage seems to be a very good model, and that's why we approach it that way. So that informs our seeker so that we can have the right square footage as it impacts the environment, and it helps inform our estimate to make sure that we're confident we have the right dollars in the project. And I think I've got the stadium entry buildings. That's the second floor. You know, we've talked about a running track on the second floor. So running track, new weight room, new physical education space that could be used for, we're talking about cheerleading practices, other types of PE, aerobics. I mean, so lots of PE space there on the second floor. And this is the stadium. Last but not least, we'll start on the visitor side. So right now, maybe I should have given you some context. So we've got the current existing entry building with the toilet rooms and the 2 storage spaces. So what we're kind of tentatively planning is a visitor locker room on this side. This gives the ability for visiting teams, because I think even right now we're kind of, it seems like, I mean, the football games are amazing. That's all I'm going to start by saying. I have been to every single one, and I will absolutely be at homecoming. It's really amazing to see the community come out to even games where we win by 40, which was amazing. So, and I think my point to that is, the visitor buses, it seems like we struggle with where they should be right now. You know, I think at one point we had them up against the building, then Johnson City was right in the drive lane Friday night here. So I think putting this visitor locker room and giving this location really begins to drive home visitor buses lining right here on this curve. Kind of keeps them out of the flow of spectator traffic, and it gives them an opportunity to come in, leave their buses here, unload the students. They'll be able to come in on this high side, get into the locker room, and then they can come right out onto the field. And then vice versa, when they're leaving, they're straight back into the locker room, they're straight out onto the sidewalk and onto the buses. So that's what we're thinking tentatively right now is locker room layout there. You can see, like Tom mentioned, full locker room, bathrooms, coaches facility here on the visitor side. Then when you come over to the home side, you'll notice a couple of things different. One, a connection to the gymnasium in some capacity. So the idea here is for physical education, students can come out. We've got a crosswalk right here, a set of stairs, because we do have a grade change there with some ramps that brings them down to kind of a little mini entrance point similar to this, but exclusive for the athletes. It gives them athletes and performers. Definitely should say. So performers come, I would imagine everyone comes down on the sides here, locker rooms here, as well as coaches facility, as well as physical therapy. So any kind of medical emergencies, we've got the ability to bring athletes directly into this space and look after them. On the other side, more toilet rooms. We imagine these could be for visitors, so we've kind of got the ability to not have everyone come to one side for toilet rooms. As well as this is the music storage. So right now I think it was over 1,000 square feet, and I think that's only taking into account this square. So, you know, we've got to have this corridor for exiting purposes. We also thought it might be convenient to have that, but we've also made this is about 8 feet wide. So the reality is you've got 1,000 square feet of open storage here, as well as the ability to put all kinds of shelving along this side and utilize that as storage as well. So, and that's not included in that 1,000 square feet. Absolutely. It is.
I think it's one of the questions more for Tom. I love what I see from a visitor locker room standpoint. Do we currently bring the visiting team to somewhere any other option at halftime and gathering and partying?
We do have the 2 stories, but it is custom that we go to the far end zone. But we have for emergencies, and if we have the 2 stories that are in the building that now that can show you where we are.
Yep.
So that each team has a place if they have to. If it's really bad, all we do is we have to stay in and go into the sound gymnasium. So if they call it.
So they only have access to that with the money.
And if they wish, most of them,
They can't go there?
yeah, most of them do not wish to take that out. It's like when it's like for years we played elementary, we were always in one place.
Yeah. I get it.
But this will make it easier once it's.
This will certainly make it better.
And I think that's what I've got for the project as far as scope. And so without any other questions, I'll turn it over to Chris to go over through the seeker stuff, and I'm sticking around. So All right. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Christine.
That's a nice class, having the connection from the new building right out to the.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not sure how it's going to end up working. You know, we've got a lot of massaging to do here. I imagine a lot of the same materials that you're seeing show up here on the site, you know, those limestone walls, I imagine being utilized somewhere here just to continue to create that material connection. But we definitely thought it was important to have that pathway connection between the new gymnasium and the stadium.
And that would be another raised crossing.
Definitely.
Hopefully people like that because it does slow people down.
Yeah, this will be, imagine this crossing exactly like it is here, as well as in front of the stadium. And I think once you get used to them, they're definitely a nicer and safer way to kind of control a parking lot. So.
Okay, good evening. Chris Wood, going to take you through the next step of the seeker process. We have been working on this. It's the state environmental quality review. The New York State has put guidelines in place for all projects to follow for the environmental assessment. We've completed the part 1 previously, and we've sent the lead agency request letters to the involved agencies. And we've gotten responses back, and they have determined that the district can act as lead agency if they choose to do so. So we're here tonight to go through the part 2 of the environmental assessment form, and I'll go through that with you with the responses, and then at the end, if you guys are agreeing to the findings that we've prepared for you in the part 2, you guys would take a resolution and a motion to approve the seeker as a negative declaration for the project, and then there's a part 3 document that the district would have to sign and return to us to finalize that negative declaration that you'll be looking at tonight.
So the board does know that is under the finance resolution and speaker resolution.
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of speech.
That'll work.
Okay.
So we'll go down through the part 2 here. There's 18 questions associated with part 2. And the first one here is impact on land. And the response to that question that we have determined is yes. The proposed action, how they determine it is that involves construction or physical alterations of the land surface of the proposed sites. So yes, you have land impacts. However, there are areas that have previously been disturbed or adjacent to existing buildings in those locations. Question number 2 is impacts to geological features. The answer there is no. There are no negative impacts to environmental features, environmental geological features.
Can you go back to number 1?
Yes, sir.
Up there on the floor, now.
The check mark is there.
Check mark on it.
Yep.
Okay.
And then number 3, impacts on surface water. The answer there is no. The project will not encroach into any water features, including streams, ponds, lakes, or wetlands. I'll go down to question number 4, impact on groundwater. The project is not anticipated to increase proposed water usage or potentially introduce contaminants to the groundwater. So the answer there is no. Question number 5, impact on flooding. Again, here the answer is no. No portion of the project site is located within the floodplain. Impacts on air, the answer again is no. The proposed action does not include a change in the air emission sources. The project is not anticipated to increase the trip generation, and therefore there's no change in the associated air emissions. Number 7, impacts to plant and animals. The answer here is yes. The proposed action will not impact the habitat population or cause reduction in habitat of any identified threatened or endangered species identified to be located in the vicinity of the project, and those species are including the long-eared bat, the upland sandpiper, the northern harrier, and the long-eared salamander, or the long-tailed salamander. Again, the reason we answer yes because there is potential threatened endangered species that come up. However, the significance of that is minor because all the areas that we're working within have been previously disturbed and impacted. Impacts on agricultural resources. There's no impacts there. No agricultural resources are known to exist within 500 feet of the project sites. Number 9, impacts on aesthetic resources. Proposed improvements are consistent with the current use of the sites, so the answer there is no. Number 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources, yes. Some of the sites are located within archaeological sensitive areas, but proposed improvements will be completed in areas that have been previously disturbed. As part of the prior project, the SHPO was consulted for development and improvements at each site, and SHPO provided a no impact letter for each work site. Impact on open space and recreation, your answer is no. While there are additions to be completed and claiming existing green space, the sites continue to be available for use of the general public. These spaces are not known to be designated spaces in associated municipal adopted open space plans. Number 12, impact on critical environmental areas. No critical environmental areas exist on or adjacent to the project site. Number 13, impact on transportation. No. The proposed project is not proposed to cause a change in the enrollment and therefore will not have an impact on the existing transportation system. The site improvements will be completed in efforts to improve existing transportation patterns. 14, impact on energy. Yes. The proposed action will add building area, but will be completed in a manner to adhere to building code and energy standards. 15, impact on noise, odor, and light. Small impact on noise is anticipated during construction and therefore will be completed during routine working hours. Once the construction is complete, impacts to noise, odor, and light is minimal. Additional lighting will be added to some of the project sites. However, lighting will be night sky compliant, not resulting in addition in light spillage to adjacent parcels. Number 16, impact on human health. The answer there is no. The proposed actions will be completed on the sites where existing schools are located without documented impacts to human health. And we'll get to number 17, consistent with community planning and plans. The proposed action will be completed on the sites that are currently utilized for educational facilities, and this educational use shall remain. And then finally, number 18, Consistency with community character, the answer there is no. The proposed improvements are anticipated to be completed in a manner that is complementary to the current buildings for look, size, and scale, and therefore consistent with the community character. So with that, that is the review of the part 2 of the environmental review. And with that, we've reviewed this and have come up for you guys with an action for determination of significance as a negative declaration, and no significant adverse impacts will result as part of this project. So the next step would be for the board to act upon the resolution for a negative declaration to the type 1 action. And if that passes, then you guys would proceed to signing the negative deck for the part 3. Any questions, concerns?
Just so the board knows, that is part of the action tonight. That would complete the process. If the
Correct.
board approved, a referendum tonight. Before that, they would also approve this after that procedure in the same
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It's that way.
That's all I have. If there's no questions.
Any questions on the referendum or the project? I know that had to take a little time. Once the board has made a decision, if we go forward, then we will start the community action piece, is fine tuning it, and also doing what we did before the last project, by bringing people in and starting to explain what's going on as well as more detail.
As far as the air conditioning, it's always said that we have to eliminate the
That's correct.
That's in every piece that we are touching here. The only two that I'm aware of, and correct me, is Big Flat and Ridge Road. It would only be the areas that we are touching at this point, with the third project to finalize those that everybody else will be.
That's correct. Yep. Yeah, I think it, because I thought,
That's the last project to do the swimming pool, the north end, music, and some classes. But we would already have it on place that when we went through renovation, they would do it.
and I think actually currently your music suite is air conditioned. So, because I was corrected, because I thought, oh yeah, we're not touching that, but that's because that already has a rooftop unit, and those 2 music rooms are already air conditioned. So essentially, the north gym, we're not touching that in this project, so the north gym would remain air conditioned, but essentially that's the last space left in this building.
Other questions from the board? We have that all teed up during the financial portion, so this is discussion. Mr. Johnson.
So I think it's just conceptual at this point with the high school stadium and the location of the locker rooms and everything. But aren't we looking at a little bit of cross traffic with visitors and home team?
Yeah.
We have home stands, visitors, locker room, then home locker rooms and visitor stands.
Yep.
So it's kind of a, you want to? Okay, go for it. Yeah.
The concept is very simple. Our home team runs to their stands, so everybody can see what's coming at us. Instead of bringing kids and moving them all around and then crossing them outside, we're coming straight on, and there would be also gates put in. So they basically are coming right out of their locker rooms and across the field. We control when they come out. Just like the visitors team, they would come on and run for a service. Afterwards, they meet and shake and notice the visitors on the far side, home's on this side. We shake, and guess what? We come back again. It's all flow. So the flow works very well with that crossing pattern because we control when they come out. So we don't have the tunnel, but we have the ability to come out and stage it like we've been doing it currently right now. A lot of it is we are coming and running across the field at this point. So we are already practicing the model and the flow. That also allows for some of the coloring. Home stands are blue, away stands are white. The home locker room will have a blue face, the away locker room will have a white face. different color H's on each. And that way it just ties to each of the color flow, color scheme, and opposite. And plus, our field band, when we're done, we'll have a practice field on the outside of the stadium, and then they can access both inside the stadium and outside through their storage area, which will be a huge improvement from the back of the transportation center hall.
All right.
Does Mr. Christmas have any questions? Johnny, can you check this? Thumbs up. Oh. Thank you. Okay, seeing none, we're ready to move on to our thumbs up to move on. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
Stick around until we get through the vote.
Yep.
At this time, we need to go through our professional development action plan. Tony, we will try to be as brief as possible. This is a lot to cover.
There's no presentation to be put on the screen. The document that was put on board docs and updated today is a document that was used in 2019-20 last year. This is an annual document that we put before for public discussion or discussion with the board. Last year with COVID, there was not a requirement of that. Like I said, the document you have in front of you is basically the same one that you would have seen in 2019-20. The team that usually puts this together has been on hiatus, so it still has draft across the back of it. We should do our due diligence to show it to that team, to allow them to talk about it. That'd be the professional learning team, and they meet next Thursday. But we usually present this document sometime in August and September of every school year, after the board has gone through its retreat, after we've had our admin retreat, established the goals, and the site-based teams have met, and how everything starts to connect into our work. In the document, you'll see two major goals that we really do focus on, and that is our curriculum and our wellness, which has been ongoing from our 2030 initiative. And like I said, this is just a framework. There is not details. What we hope to do is over the course of the year, provide what our buildings are doing, what our grade levels are doing, what the district is doing, all in conjunction, and our committees and teams are doing to meet these ends and how they work within this. So once again, I just want to emphasize, this is an annual document, a framework provided to the state and BOCES, let them know what we're sort of thinking about and working on, so when they put together their professional learning opportunities for us, they use this document as a starter, but we have ongoing conversations with BOCES, of course, and our needs and what they can offer us. So with that, you've seen it, and if there's any questions. Warren?
Go ahead. Yeah.
All right, so on page 7, on page 17 of the document at the top, year 2 and 3 of the mentor program were defunded during the period of the Great Recession. So was there any consideration given to maybe adding year 2 or both year 2 and 3 back?
Okay. Thanks for bringing it up. I forgot to detail that the extra ends of this document are a mentoring plan. It's a negotiated document. That's why you're going to see some date discrepancies on that. It was the sitting committee at that time, which is listed on the one page as 17-18, I believe, and then on the next page when the document went to an effect in 18-19. So being a negotiated document that has not been touched, we will revisit that with HTA, with negotiations, and that could be a topic of the conversation at that point. There's no change to that document as it's negotiated. So as a district, no, we have not approached that. That would be part of that conversation with HTA.
All right, so as I understand the document, if you're a mentor, you receive a stipend of $1,500.
Correct.
All right, so in tonight's HR report on T2,
We have an individual that is getting $750.
correct. How does that work, I guess? then?
Absolutely. The requirement by my New York State is that all new teachers to New York State receive 1 year of mentoring. If they come from another state, we have instances of this every year with 14 years of experience, they still are assigned a 1-year mentor for $1,500 for that stipend. In certain instances, and this one, we have had these in the past, where an individual has taught in New York State, but perhaps has not taught in that particular area. As a district, we make a determination to allow a half-year mentor. So sometimes we have an experienced teacher in New York State that's gone in a variety of circumstances, and the district kind of just steps up and says, you know what, this person can use a mentor. And we're going to provide a half-year mentor to start to support this experienced teacher who doesn't need it by New York State requirements, but we feel value in helping making that connection with the experienced teacher in our district. So it's an above and beyond to support new teachers.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see year 2 and 3 come back, or at least year 2.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sure. So like I said, our intent is over the next, for the school year, normally we've had building presentations. Because of COVID and safety reasons, obviously, we've put them aside a little bit, but we're looking to reintroduce some of that by Tiffany and I and Kelly using the information and using our what's happening at our building levels and at our grade level meetings and sharing that work around these, especially those 2 major goals with the board throughout the school year. Thank you.
Tony, before you end, so separate from this, so I just want to make a comment. I know at the last board meeting, we had approved the person, I can't remember his name, who came in last Friday during the professional development. I actually heard from several people that was fabulous. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much, and it was nice just to kind of hear, word on the street type of feedback from that. So.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. And I know that Tiffany has worked with her team to get not just the anecdotal, but also what's next, right? Mm-hmm. That's often a model that comes out of our office. Okay, we got this done. Now what's next in that progression of learning for math? So, thank you.
One of the comments that I heard, and I won't mention any names or anything, but one of the comments was, I wish we had school on Monday so I can start implementing and practicing.
That's great.
And Monday obviously was a holiday, so so I thought that was really awesome to hear that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bizzetti, is that signed in under your name, or if I sent you a file, could you get it up? Thank you.
Okay, so we'll turn it over to Dr. Douglas for the superintendent presentation report.
And if the board will just indulge me for a second while I send this file to Ms. Bizzetti. What it is it's actually the recent COVID data that we have here. So let me forward that to Okay, that should be on your way if you can get that up, and I'll talk about it once you get it up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Ms. Dale, members of the Board of Education. I'll try to make this as brief as possible, but we've got a lot of things going on. First of all, we'd like to start testing as soon as possible, but we've run into some snags with the State Department of Health not getting us the Binex tests that we so readily ordered over 5 weeks ago. We have received word that we should be seeing allocations coming soon, but it's sort of anybody's guess at this point until we get that from the Department of Health. Our local county has been very instrumental in trying to bring in pool testing. I think we're getting very close to that, as well as the county looking at some options for county testing sites for our students. The good part is that I can report that Fellow superintendents, myself, have been trying to communicate to the State Department of Health as well as through the County Department of Health. I know they've joined us in knowing that our data from just this year has indicated that we've had a lot of students that have been direct contact for one reason or another. A lot of these students tend to be at the lower grade levels, but anywhere across the pre-K through 12 is just one too many. We have asked the State Department of Health as well as the local counties to consider having discussions about the fact that throughout the past 6 weeks, the district, and most districts are in the same situation, have not seen much community spread from a direct contact who's been in contact with a positive that's a student here in school. For Horseheads, we've had over 500 direct contacts in the 6 weeks that we've been opening. And to date, we've had 2 direct contacts that we are aware of that have become COVID positive. So that's a very low number. One of those was a sibling in the household of a positive, so that's sort of to be expected. However, one was from student-to-student contact here at school. Most of our students that have become positive are because of outside issues or outside events and so forth. It's not related to school. So parents have been doing a remarkable job of keeping kids home when they're symptomatic and working with the schools, and we are seeing that. So we asked the State Department of Health, would you be willing to grant a possible pilot that a school that keeps very accurate, quick data, daily data on its student population and COVID transmission rates, that we would possibly be allowed to allow our direct contacts, as long as they're having no symptoms, to be able to come to school each day. In other words, the way we presented it is if a student is positive, and say we have 10 direct contact students, if those students, we notify their parents are direct contacts, the school nurse knows they're direct contacts, and those students have no symptoms, they would come to school each and every day. And what we would ask our parents is if any of those students all of a sudden had even the one symptom, they immediately keep them home, and we get them through the testing protocol. If they test negative, they're returned to school immediately. If they test positive, obviously they go through the protocol. In addition, that we feel the parents would help us out, which we've had great success with, we would also, as the students coming through that 10-day, have our nurses regularly check in with the students because they're not having symptoms, just as a secondary check. We explained this to the Department of Health that if we had 500 students in 6 weeks, that was over 5,000 potential lost days of instruction. And that this seems to be a logical way. I'm happy to report that the County Department of Health has said they are finally talking about this, and that they are looking at possibly some direct tests to stay and so forth. So we're trying to fight to get kids so that they don't have to go out, sort of similar to the flu. Flu season is around the corner, and it's going to run into a sort of what they've called as a twin pandemic or a twin endemic, and we want to try to be ready. So I'm very thankful for our county executive, our health director, as they are trying to help us as much as possible make sure kids have that educational activity. So that's one thing to report. We are in an uptick in a lot of cases in the area, if anybody's been following. But we have our data, and we're going to zoom that out to about 50% so you can see the whole tablet that we use. And I'm going to transition down just so that I can show the board, because if you look at this data versus last year, I would be coming to the board and saying, should we be closing? Now, if you notice, we have not, and I'm going to try to explain some of that, because one is we've worked with our county health department, we've worked with our county executive. We are not seeing the major issues in school, but the county definitely is, and we need everybody's help to bring this down. So I just want to take a second just to show you the data that we're at. The color charts are the 4 colors that come from the CDC chart, so that we're in correspondence with it, but we calculate our transmission rate. And as you can see from this, we are just starting to hit the red for the overall district transmission rate. Again, remember, whenever we hit it, we're 2 weeks out. There's always a 2-week delay because of the way that the data is tracked. So just give me a second. Brian, could you turn my computer, please? Thank you. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm just getting here to the start. As you know, we keep track of the county statistics day by day. We also look at the New York State data from the New York State dashboard and we look at it for Chemung, we look at it for Steuben, and we look at it for Broome, more in comparisons than anything. That's where we grab our data source. We get data from the CDC on their formats, and as you can see, the CDC is not looking very good. And this is where we are as of yesterday. And then COVID Act Now is the Johns Hopkins database. Again, you can see it's escalating and it's turning red. And we were never near any of this type of color last year. When you start looking at the New York State database, we're heavily orange, but it's the total cases that really get you, and they get repeated over in each of the metrics. But as you can see, we're in that orange, and it's the red that we're really worried about. If this whole data point was red across the board, I think before we got there, other people would be taking notice. But we haven't heard anything from the state. The county has been very good at not necessarily making a determination for all of us, but we just wanted to share. And then this is our local. Notice it's more orange, but again, it's that county case. This is all the data set that I just showed you. When we do the calculation, we assign a percentage on a 4.0 scale to each of these numbers, so you're going to see the same color. That ultimately will have 18 points. 4 of them will be on the positivity rate. And the reason why we don't just use positivity rate, because you'll see, last year our highest positivity rate was 15%. We're hovering about 11% right now, and that's been the high in this peak a couple times. But with that, oops, sorry, trying to get over there. What happens is all of these data points are averaged together on a daily basis, and that's where we get to our final scale. So you can see, notice we still have in some data sets we're in yellow, but that's just basically, it's only relating to the information specifically for that data. And then what the community needs to know is in this, when we start making our determinations, we look at week by week infections. We had last week 14 students, 57 students that were direct contacts. Remember, if the state gives us that way, 57 kids would still be in school, 14 would be out as long as they did not become symptomatic. But the big difference this year over last year is we had 1 staff member that was under positive quarantine at that time and 2 that were under direct contact. Last year at this time, roughly, we had 60 staff members under direct or positive, and that made it very difficult. So when you sort of take all of that and what's happening in our neighbor county, we've sort of been slowly graduating, and I can show you. Our low point was right here during the summer, and it was July 6th. This was the lowest point. And on July 6th, we were at, of this calculation, we were at 0.30 transmission rate. As we went through July, we hit August, we steadily started almost going up by 0.2 each week. And that sort of corresponds with the Delta variant moving from the island all the way upstate. And you can see we went from blue to yellow, and then right here is where we started school, just about in the orange. And then it's consistently gone up. It started to level off a little bit recently, and you can see it corresponds with the red that's over there, and then it dropped down. But then it peaked up again, and today was the first time it dropped back down. So we are monitoring it closely. So far, I don't see a reason to be alarmed because it sort of models what's happening in other places. But I will tell you, Chemung County is one of the top 2 in the entire counties in the entire state of New York. We have a significant amount of infection and spread here. But the problem is we were able to tell which towns and localities, but the numbers became so much that it was becoming more and more difficult to constantly cross-reference them in a timely manner on the county site. So we know that it's there. We just are hoping that when they say 93 cases in a day, they're not coming from schools because we're not seeing it. But it would be helpful, are they coming from a youth program? Are they coming from the nursing homes? That's what we will have a discussion with the county. So I just wanted the board to know where we're at. Like I said, right now, our 7-day pattern for last week put us at 2.89. It was the first week we only went up by 9/100ths of a point instead of 0.2 of a point each week. So I think just like the state's been modeling, we are at the peak. But we're going to have a little data issue over the next couple of weeks, and I'm hoping that it trends down. The big thing, parents are doing what we've asked them to. Please keep your children home, get them tested if they're sick. Don't just send them. If they have an alternative diagnosis, make sure you're working with your pediatrician so that they have the doctor's note. If not, we have no choice but to go through the county protocol, and we try to avoid that. And if you have questions, please contact our building principals or our building nurses. They will help you out. So I wanted to give the board a little overview of where the data is. And what happens is we try to keep track of hospitalizations because that's a major concern. Hospitalizations when we started the year were around 6. We're up to 48 right now. But some of that is because individuals cannot leave maybe the hospital because they cannot get a negative COVID test at this point because of their own situation. So it's just trying to keep people apprised. Does the board have any concern about us staying open at this point? And like I said, I would use this and come back each month to show you. So we're on the right track at this point. If it becomes very alarming or starts to all turn red, I mean, I'm going to request a special board meeting. But at this point, it doesn't look like it's going to be there at that time. Any questions? Katie, if you can remove this. Thank you. Getting a workout tonight going back and forth. We want to take this time also to thank our Board of Education members. It's very rarely, especially over the past couple of years, been the most easiest job of being unpaid and dedicating service and time to the community. On behalf of the entire administration, my faculty and staff, we have a small token of our appreciation and some from the staff members for your board service, as this next week is Board Recognition Week. Normally we'd be going to NSBA. At this time, unfortunately, due to staffing shortages, they have canceled that, but they are going to do a virtual one-day event. We do have our annual business meeting. I know Mr. Johnson is going to be the lucky delegate, and we did not receive anything from any board member that says that they would like to talk about anything in the resolution. So as in board past, it would be customary that the board would adopt the resolutions as adopted by NSBA, and then any floor fights would be that of the delegate in hand. Mr. Johnson.
Okay. So I looked over things late, and I think everything that was recommended, just knowing board members is working with them over the years, I think goes along with what we would do, and the things that were not recommended, I think goes against things that we would support. There was one that wasn't recommended that I'd like to get the board's feeling on, and that's proposed resolution number 19. It states that NSBA will seek legislation and/or policy changes to streamline the teacher certification process for teachers from out of state and those with previous teaching experience. Basically, NSBA did not recommend it, saying the committee believed the process for certifying out-of-state teachers is adequate and ensures that New York State maintains high standards for its educators. Meanwhile, the committee also noted that processes currently exist to allow districts to hire teachers as they are still completing the appropriate teaching certification required of them. So on that point, I just wanted, does any board member feel differently than the NSBA committee on this, that NSBA should push for this, or are we content with the explanation of the resolutions committee?
I'm just rereading it. Does everybody have it with it on to see? Okay.
I would ask, does the school district have any concerns about the current process right now?
The school district would like as many possible options as possible to get the most qualified individuals into our profession. Is that fair, Tony? Ms. Owen? Any administrator here that's been doing hiring recently? Okay.
Yeah, since I'm kind of involved in this process as well at BOCES, I know, I think we would like to see more certified teachers at BOCES. I assume, I know the district has been talking about the same thing. So if there was another path to get more appropriately, these would be folks that would have some background, maybe not quite as rigorous as New York State, but have some background in teaching and pedagogy and, at least maybe get them provisionally certified if they had to maybe get a couple classes under the belt or something, but get them certified so that we can employ them and put them to work. Let me put it another way. Would anyone have a problem with Horsehead School Board voting in favor of this proposal against the recommendation of the committee?
Show of hands real quick. Are you okay with voting in favor of supporting or say that, Doug, because these always get tricky.
Yeah. Well, the proposal stated positively, so it's seeking for greater certification for out-of-state folks. So I think the district and the board would be in favor of more certified, qualified people. So I would say, I would put it out there as a possible yes vote from the Horsehead School Board.
Thumbs up for yes. This is always the fun part of the year, trying to understand those resolutions. Thank you.
Okay, so I will convey that at the business meeting. I will vote in favor of this resolution. And that was the only one I really had a question on. Thanks.
Anything else from the floor? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of great things going on. We have our homecoming coming up. Our teams are out there. Our field band's out there. I know I was watching our green room players and everyone practice today. We want to thank everybody for being and staying as positive as we tried to do and adjust to the new normal right now of trying to keep everything as active as possible so that we try to stick to what we normally do, but there will be some modifications. As far as this room, just so that the board knows, and at home you may be seeing a little dimmer view. That's because the lighting board here is being worked on because it had a complete failure. And I want to commend the maintenance, Mr. Chavone, who's back there, Mr. Coughlin, building principal, and all of working out a temporary solution because we are starting to head into some concert seasons. In addition, we look forward to seeing everybody come out as we will be announcing open houses in the first week of November of our new construction and maybe some sneak peeks at some of our ongoing construction if I can talk some people into letting people see sort of the before to what it becomes after as our open houses go, both here and at the middle school. And then also we will be scheduling some discussions with the community on the potential referendum if approved tonight. So I want to thank the board for their support and tireless dedication to our kids.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, so board report, we've already covered the NYSBA, so thank you, Mr. Johnson, for being our representative at the business meeting. And just a reminder, any other board members that would like to participate in the virtual meeting on October 25th, you can just go out to NYSBA's website and the links are out there. I encourage you, as your schedule permits, to sit in on some of those sessions. They're always very interesting, and this is an opportunity, given the fact that it is virtual, that more people can actually participate. And then the other thing I'd like to say is before our next, between now and our next board meeting, there's going to be a lot of sectional play for our athletes. There's going to be hopefully state competitions for our athletes, and we also know there'll be the state competition for our field band. So I just want to wish all of our students and coaches and advisors just the best of luck as they have those great competitions between now and our next board meeting. And we did not have an audit committee this past month, but we did have a policy committee, so I'll turn it over to the policy committee.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Dale. We met on September 30th. We discussed policies on curriculum guides and course outlines, display of the flag, prayer in schools, teaching about religion, and career and technical education. And we have first readings of those policies available tonight on the agenda. We also have a second reading of equivalence in instruction and staff materials. And after legal review, we are recommending deleting the policy in its entirety. We tabled discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion due to the absence of our most important committee member at that time. And we hope to have him back next time so we can have a full discussion. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 8, our finance items for action. We have 8.02 through 8.17. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Any comments or discussion? I know we do have a comment that Ms. Pizzetti will give us for 8.15, so I'll turn it over to you first.
Good evening, not good morning. Agenda item 8.15 currently reads for recommended action that the board approve the insurance policy for cyber liability. We do not currently have that policy at the moment. It is still being worked on by our underwriters. So I am asking that the board approve a resolution for the to approve the increase to the superintendent's contract approval authority to enter into the policy agreement when we do have that proposal.
In addition, just so the board knows, once we get that will be shared at least 24 hours before any signature for any board member to weigh in if there's something that we need to bring it back to the committee. Our issue is trying to make sure the timing makes sure that our cyber insurance does not lapse.
Shall I read the whole resolution?
Please make the whole resolution to drop 8.15, and then amend 8.15.
Amended on board docs? I'm sorry.
So we'll vote on everything but 8.15, and then we'll take a motion for the new resolution for 8.15, and then vote on that separate, if that's okay.
Is the board acceptable to that?
Okay, so right now, everything that's on the table is 8.02 through 8.14, and then 8.16 and 8.17. So any comments or discussion on any of those items or questions? Warren?
On 8.03, seems to be an awful lot of sightings on purchase order approval process violations. Could you speak to that a little bit, please?
Sure. This is actually rather typical for this time of year when we do the July rollover of purchase orders. Oftentimes, things are missed during that rollover process. So we are going to make different efforts when we get to that season in the spring with our purchasing agent that's now in-house to be more proactive of encouraging that rollover process to make sure that each department has everything in place that they need for the start of the new school year. I will say, though, that the comparison that we do year to year, we look at that each time. This is actually less than where we were at this point last year. So we're still seeing the progress, not atypical for this time of year, but we are aware of it. We are reacting to it and making tweaks to the process.
Thank you.
Brian?
Just wanted to comment on 8.14, which is approving the vote on December 7th. And I just want to say I appreciate all the hard work, by the staff, by the Hunt team, by Welliver, to get us to this point. Then the board too. We've had a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion. I know the first project went out, and it is nearing completion at this point. It's been fantastic to see the improvements around the district, inside and outside. And that was absolutely no increase of taxes to the taxpayers, which is wonderful. This larger project here that we're going to go with on December 7th hits all schools, which is fantastic. Also does some improvements inside and outside there too. So I think this is a huge step in the next direction as we go towards the Horseheads 2030. So I just wanted to, thank everybody for the hard work to reach to this point. And, I'm very supportive of the project, and hopefully we'll have a successful vote on December 7th.
Thank you. Doug?
Yeah, as a BOCES employee, there are some BOCES expenditures on the budget transfer report, which is 8.07. So to avoid the appearance of impropriety, I will abstain.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so all those in favor of 8.02 through 8.14 and then 8.16 to 8.17, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. And then we had one abstention.
Abstain.
Yep. Okay, thank you. So now we'll circle back to 8.15, so we can, if you want to restate the resolution, Katie.
Yep.
Okay, so the resolution in full reads, resolved as the underwriters are currently developing the district's renewal proposal for cyber liability insurance that is due to expire October 16th, 2021. For the renewal of the district's cyber liability insurance policy, the superintendent is authorized to approve and sign the proposal that is anticipated to be in excess of the superintendent's current contract authority limit of $10,000. The Board of Education shall be informed of the final insurance policy at the next board meeting following signing. Meaning I'll put it on the agenda for formal review and approval at that point as well.
Absolutely. Okay. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Okay. Any more questions or comments on that?
Just to ensure that the Board of Education will receive any contract that I'm going to sign prior for any discussion directly with me or any concerns.
Yep. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you.
If I can check in with Mr. Christmas real quick.
Screensaver.
Mr. Christmas is on somebody else's computer because mine just died.
Oh.
Could somebody check in, Mr. Johnson, could you check in with Mr. Christmas on his vote for that?
Dan, can we have your vote for that new resolution for the cyber liability?
You good?
He might not be able to hear me. I think we
Dan, can you hear us?
Oh, no, I'm the host.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
All right, I turned my sound on.
he's on. I can't hear you, Dan.
If he can give a thumbs
Oh,
up
he gave a thumbs up. We're good.
for
Thumbs
his
up.
vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christmas.
If you can just, for the record in the audience, so that each time he's vote, we have witnesses for his vote as well.
Absolutely. Okay.
Sorry, Dan.
All right, next up, we have our personnel items for action, 9.02 and 9.03. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any comments or discussion on that? Mary Ann?
I'll just use my teacher voice. Section 8, number 4, I will be voting no. Section J, number 2, I will abstain due to conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ann. Anything else? Tom?
Yes, line item L7, I will abstain as that's a relative.
Okay. Warren?
I'll vote no on H4 also.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor of 9.02, 9.03, with the exceptions of what was just stated for abstentions and no, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Aye.
We have Dan, aye. All those opposed, nay. We have the 2. And abstentions. We have the 2. Okay. That was enough to pass all of them, right? Okay. All right, next up, we have our miscellaneous items for action, 10.02 and 10.03. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Any comments or questions here? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Dan's an aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, we have one policy for a second reading, 11.01. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or discussion, questions on this? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Dan's an aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, our board policies for first reading, we have 12.01 through 12.05. Anybody have any questions or comments for the policy committee on any of these? Okay, looks good. We'll have those up for action for vote next meeting. I'd like to open it up to any board member comments at this time. Mary Ann?
I just want to say it's really nice to be back, and I want to thank all of you who sent cards and good wishes and all of the things that really helped recovery. Thank you all.
It is wonderful to have you back, Mary Ann, so thank you for coming back. Any other board comments? All right, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? All right, thank you all very much. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for coming out to tonight's Board of Education meeting of the Horsehead Central School District's Board of Education. Tonight's major initiative is that a capital referendum is scheduled for vote at this point by approval of the board for December 7th from 7 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock in the evening at the Horseheads High School. Information will be forthcoming in a district newsletter as well as public announcements. Ladies and gentlemen, that will be the presentation of a referendum on Horseheads 2030, continuing our build. Thank you very much and have a good evening.